Hi, welcome back to the channel, and for anyone who's been with me a while knows I've been having enormous technical difficulties lately with my cameras, and I hope, fingers crossed, that I've managed to sort something out for this video. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to go ahead anyway and just do my best. But according to what I can see on the little screen, it's looking better than it was. I'd put in a huge effort in October to do Vlogtober and upload a video every day, and I did really well right up towards the last week of the month, and then it all just fell apart. You know, I got ill, Neil got ill, everything went wrong, and then it all kind of just fell off a cliff, and I just haven't been filming, which is such a shame, because, you know, there was an awful lot that I wanted to film and to show you at the beginning of November, which is quite an important time of the month for me. But more about that later or in the next video. Right now I just wanted to do a very quick catch up on what's been happening. Namely, I had a big rant video last month where I was going, my power company, and you know, that was I was having issues with them, and I've had many conversations with an AI at their end, which is infuriating, because, you know, all you want is a human that actually really understands you, and all it keeps coming back with is, have you tried our app? And it's like, that's the app that I'm contacting you about. It's the app that is the problem. If you haven't seen that video, the problem is that my energy, my gas and electric for the house comes from one company, and I have an app on my phone which should tell me how much credit I've got on my account, and then I pay every month by direct debit, so the money goes out of my bank every month into this account, and then I'm billed twice a year, and there should be a nice little amount of money sat there that should be enough to cover the whole bill and have some left over. But that balance wasn't updating, and it just worried me that, you know, if it's not going on to my balance, then what's happened with this money? How do I know that you've actually got this money? How do I know what I've got in my account? All this sort of thing. And the long shot of it is that they have come back saying that they no longer give an updated balance on the app because they thought that we were, well, to paraphrase, too stupid to understand. That's obviously not what they exactly said, but it's pretty much what it came down to. And, you know, my point is, well, if we understood it before, when you used to do it, what's changed now? But they have given me an up-to-date balance, which still shows that I've got way too much money going in there to cover what they estimate my bill's going to be in March, when the next bill is due. But in some ways that's quite reassuring, because then I should have plenty of money in there. But what worries me is that they're doing the calculations on an estimate of what my bill will be, going on what I've used in the past, last year and the year before. But last year and the year before, I was so worried about gas prices that we were sat here freezing a lot of the time. You know, we just weren't having the heating on. I was having it on for something like half an hour a day just to try and keep the house from getting damp into the walls. And so it worries me that if I'm having my heating on now more, that I'm going to be using way more power than I was using last year or the year before, and I'm not going to have enough money then to cover it. So I'm still somewhat stressed about that, more so because at the moment Neil's going through he has Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, which affects his thought power and his brain function. And if I say to him, can you just pop the heating on for an hour? In past times, then we would pop the heating on, we'd set a timer to say, turn it back off again in an hour. And, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 hours after I've said, can you put the heating on? I'm thinking, it's awfully warm here. And then I call him, and he'll walk into whatever room I'm in, you know, wearing just a t-shirt. And it's like, if you've got a t-shirt on, that heating's on way too high. You know, I'm old school. You know, I'm old school that says, if you're cold, put a jumper on. So I'm somewhat nervous about that. And as I say, at the moment, and part of the reason I haven't been filming and uploading everything is because Neil is having this difficult time at the moment. it means that I have to kind of do all of his thinking for him, and he won't mind me saying that because he knows that's the situation. So I'm always trying to think ahead of what he needs to do, what he is doing, what he might do. You know, it's like when he loses something, then you have to start thinking, well, it's not just where would I have put it, it's where would Neil have put it, you know. So it's very, very frustrating time when he's like this. And what makes it far worse is that when he gets like it, he gets very, very I suppose angry is one word, but his temperament is very fragile, and the slightest thing will flip him over the edge. And even he says that he doesn't like himself when he's like it, but it's very, very hard to live with, especially because I've got many, many health concerns of my own that I'm trying to deal with. And, you know, I lean on him for helping me, but when the table's flipped and I'm having to do it all for him, it's a bit of an issue. But that was the other thing that I was going to update you on, is I had another rant about my health, and I had had a load of blood tests done, and I had to go in and have my annual reviews for I'm supposed to have an annual review for my atrial fibrillation, for my a stroke review, and for hypertension. And these, as I say, it's once a year I'm supposed to go in. The stroke reviews have been going on for the last 12 years now, and for the life of me I have no idea what they do. I go in and I sit down, they ask me to explain everything that I've told them in the past 12 years, and it's like, well, aren't you listening? Aren't you writing it down? Why do you need me to come in and tell you that it's all exactly the same? I just get so frustrated and annoyed by it, and because I know that I don't look as though I'm very physically disabled, then when you go in and you say, you know, I'm here for a stroke, they hear mini stroke TIA, when it's not. It's actually, you know, I have massive brain damage. Because you can't see it on me, you don't think that it's there, but it is. And you know, when I know that medical people don't believe me, because when I've been taken into hospital before now, into A&E, and I said I've got massive brain damage from a stroke back in 2012, they've actually come back to me afterwards and said, we didn't believe you until we saw your scans. It was when we saw the actual scans of your brain that we believed that yes, it was a massive stroke and you do have extensive brain damage. So I know that I'm not believed when I'm talking to them. So I'm down there for this annual review. Also, part of the review is for hypertension, which I don't have. And so I get very, very frustrated that they're trying to review me every single year for something that I don't have. And I'd gone into to this one, saw this nurse, and I said, I have taken 4 blood pressure readings per day, every day, for the last 30 days. Here is the printout from the app on my phone. It gives you an average reading of 1/6/66. That is not high blood pressure. And I gave her the piece of paper and I said, you can scan that into my records or do whatever you want with it. When I went online and looked to see what she had written on my records, she just put it down as one single reading, not an average of, you know, 4 readings a day over a 30-day period. It was just a single reading of one, and that doesn't give anybody an indication of anything. So I just get really frustrated about it. But on top of these reviews, I had she had said that the doctor wanted to speak to me about the results of my blood test, and it's like, well, I'm here right now. Why can't we discuss the results of my blood test? And basically she said because she can't do it because she's a nurse. Okay, fine. So where does that leave me? You know, and she said, well, you'll have to speak to the doctor. So later on, I've had countless discussions with the receptionist saying the doctor wants to speak to me, but I can't cope with a telephone call. And the reason that I can't cope with a telephone call, and it should be in my notes, is that I have aphasia, which means that I can hear what you're saying, but I don't always understand it. Just because I hear the words doesn't mean to say that I will be able to absorb the information that you're giving me. And I find that much harder on the phone than it is in face-to-face conversation. So I said, I can't cope with a telephone conversation. And the receptionist said, well, the doctors only give this information over the phone. And I just said, well, where does that leave me? I had already been online myself, gone through all the results of my blood test. There was nothing there that I saw concerning. And the way that they do it is they put your results online, and then they give you what your results were, next to it what the range that it should be within, to be within an acceptable range. And then if your result is over or under that particular number, then you can click on a link that takes you to what that means and what to do about it, which is really helpful for somebody who's not got a medical degree. But it means that I can actually look at it myself and say, well, that's actually nothing to worry about. It's just not something that I'm concerned about at the moment. So I wasn't worried. And the fact that they wanted to talk to me, I thought, well, ball's in your court. I've been all the way to the office. If you made me sit with the wrong person, that's not my fault. So I just left it, and then after a couple of weeks I got a text through saying, we have made an appointment for you to see a doctor. The appointment is this time on this day. And I thought, well, I might as well go and just get it over and done with. I was cross about it, but I thought, all right, I'll go. Let's get this over and done with. But on top of the frustration of it, I'm also getting anxious about it and thinking, well, what if there is something there that I, not being medically trained, don't quite understand, and maybe there is something that I should be worried about. I know that one of the results was showing up that I have some protein in my urine, because I also had a urine test done. And when I looked that up, it said it could be caused by low blood pressure or by kidney stones. I have a kidney stone and low blood pressure. So I'm thinking, well, if that's what's causing it, then I'm not overly concerned. So anyway, this appointment came through, so I go down there. It was last Wednesday. Went along to the doctor's. It's a doctor that I've never heard of before. It's a foreign name, and I think, well, I'm better face to face, but I'm still not good with accents. And when I say accents, it doesn't matter where in the world you come from. You could be British, but if you're from a region that has a dialect that I'm not quite familiar with, then I will still struggle to understand you. So, if you're from Birmingham or Liverpool or Manchester, I struggle with those. Yorkshire, I'm better with when they're speaking the words that I use, but Yorkshire tend to have a lot of words that they still use that are regional, that you kind of have to know what they mean. But having said that, if it's in the context of a sentence, you can normally kind of work out where they're going with it. But I find West Country accents, Cornwall, Devon, over to the west of the UK, I'm fine with those. I'm fine with Welsh accents, generally speaking. But anyway, this my doctor's surgery is one of these new buildings. I say new, it's probably about 20 years old now, but it's one of the newer buildings. It's got all the high-tech stuff in there. And yet, instead of having the receptionist call you when it's your turn to go in, as they used to, or have it come up on a screen as some doctors do, in my surgery, the doctor will always come out of the office, walk all the way down to the waiting room and call you, and you walk back with the doctor. Whether that's just to give them 5 minutes to stretch their legs in the middle of a busy morning, I don't know. That's not my problem, but that's the way they do it. But it meant that the doctor came down to call me, and then I followed him back to the room with Neil. And as we went into the room, the first thing he said to me is, how long has your balance been that bad? Because I do walk somewhat like a drunk, I stagger along, and I just said to him, well, it's been like that since the stroke in 2012. It's been this bad since I was last in hospital with my last major event, which was 5 or 6 years ago now. And he was fine with that. You know, it's not a new thing. It's something that's ongoing. So it's not the sign of something getting worse. This is how it's been for years and years and years. So he was okay with that. But anyway, then he sat down and he said, well, you're here to talk about your blood results. And I could understand him, which was wonderful. So, and he was just such a, he's, I say an elderly gentleman, I'm an elderly lady, I suppose, but he was probably about 5-10 years older than me. But it actually gave me a feeling of confidence that he's probably been practicing as a GP for many, many years and is as reliant on his own knowledge and experience as he is on tests and modern, how can I put this? I just feel more comfortable with somebody who's been doing it and has personal experience that goes back over a period of time. I think modern diagnosticians, whether they're doctors or vets or whoever, tend to rely far more on tests than their own knowledge, if you get my drift. So anyway, I'm happy with him, and he starts going through all my blood results and picks through them all one by one, and every time he was coming up and saying, well, it is this, it should be this, it's this much up, we're not going to worry about that. Thank you. Gets on to the next one. It should be this, it's actually a little bit under, it's not enough for us to worry about. Thank you. Gets on to the next, and this is how it went on and on and on, and I was just so thrilled. Got to the point where he was talking about the kidneys, and he said there is some indication that your kidneys aren't working as well as they did when you were 20. He said, but what they're doing is perfectly normal for your age. I don't mind my body acting its age, but you know, this is something that I found out as a repeated thing, that last time I had my eyes tested, the optician said something about your cataracts, and so I'm like, oh, what do you mean I've got cataracts? She said, everyone of your age has what you've got. She said, it's nothing to worry about, you know. So I'm thinking, okay, right. But also, when I had been discharged from hospital when I came out last time, on my discharge papers, I read that I have cerebral atrophy, which is literally the brain kind of shrinking. And I was fuming that nobody had actually sat me down and told me this, that I had to read it on discharge notes. But when I went to see my neurologist next, I said, you know, I said that I was cross, and he said, I agree, you should have been told in person. He said, but this is exactly what I would expect for anyone your age. And it just seems to me that there's an awful lot of things that will go wrong as you get older, or even not go wrong, but not perform as well as they used to because you're getting older. And I don't have a problem with that at all. You know, I mean, I just think the alternative to getting old isn't worth thinking about, is it? So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if I can carry on and it's not causing a problem to me, then, you know, let's just not think about it. These things will happen, you know, things do start breaking down and wearing down, but if it's not causing a problem, then why not just ignore it and let it happen and just grow old gracefully? But anyway, he was saying that, you know, what we'll do is in 2 months' time we'll check this, in 3 months' time we'll check that, and in 6 months' time we'll check that. But other than that, everything's completely fine. So that was a huge weight off my mind, because that is what I had decided myself when I looked through the results. So it's nice to have that actually confirmed, so that there is absolutely nothing to be concerned or worried about. And so I said to him, thank you very, very much for seeing me in person. To which he replied, that's okay, that's my job. That's what we're here for. And it's like, then why is it so flipping hard to get an appointment if you need one? And, you know, I so rarely need to go to the doctors, because even though I've got an awful lot of health conditions that are wrong, I don't get kind of sick and need to go to a doctor and say, unless there's something that I think the doctor can do about it, I don't see any point going. So if it's a case of, you know, like when I had my new knees, if it was a case of going to the doctor and saying, I need orthopaedic surgery, there is something that can be done, I'm willing to go down that line and pursue that. But if there's, you know, like cerebral atrophy, if your brain is shrinking, what can you do? You just get on with it. As long as it still works, let's just keep it going. And I had also said during the appointment, he mentioned blood pressure, so I pulled out my phone because I've got 4 years worth of readings on there, and I said, that's this morning before I took my drugs, that's this morning after I took my drugs, because when you're on beta blockers, that's going to affect it. He said, well, that's perfectly all right, you know, that's not high blood pressure, we won't worry about that. I mean, I love this guy to death, but this is what I've been battling, saying all the way through, that these are not things that I need to be concerned or worried about. And so why you're spending so much time, you know, as a GP practice, trying to hand me down and tell me that I'm sicker than I am, I don't understand. And I'd said to him also that I really appreciated him seeing me face to face, because I can't cope with telephone conversations, which would mean that he would have to speak to Neil, and then it would end up being a three-way conversation, and then nobody really knows what's being said. And he just laughed and said that he'd ended up having a consultation with somebody over the phone, and he had no less than 5 family members trying to talk to him. And, you know, but then there was another one. Now, I have no idea if they were all trying to translate for him. I don't know if it was a patient that didn't have any English and they were trying to translate, or if they were all, well, while the doctor's on the phone, I've got this and I've got that. I've got no idea. But he just said, no, he prefers face-to-face as well. So anyway, that was my big news of last week, is that, you know, the power thing, as far as it can go, is resolved. I'm still concerned about my bill when it does come in, but there's not a lot I can do about it. And as far as I can make out, I should have, once the bill comes in, I should still have £300 or £400 credit left over on top of the amount that should be there to pay the bill. So I'm thinking, even if I do spend a bit more than I have in previous years, hopefully that will be enough to cover it. And the other thing that happened is I got a letter through about my pension, and that is all going ahead. You know, the pension that I never thought I was going to get, that kicks in February. I get my first payment comes a week after my birthday, and that's just a 1 week one. And then after that, it's every 4 weeks in arrears. But that's okay. It's just the fact that I am going to receive the pension that I paid in. It's my state pension, not my private pension. But there were a lot of times when I never thought I would live to see my state pension. You know, they kept moving the qualifying age further and further away, and I never thought I would get there. So all I've got to do now is make it to my birthday, and I will be an old age pensioner, which I'm quite pleased about. So that's me rabbiting on for ages, and I'm trying to see, oh gosh, 23 minutes already. I'm just looking on the screen on the camera to see how long I've been rabbiting on for. I really hoped that doing the Vlogtober would get me in the habit of recording far more often, but I just kept getting thrown out by the fact that the settings on my cameras have been completely changed in a way that I couldn't get it back. But from what I can see sitting here right now, that looks kind of okay, and certainly better than the last couple of films that I've put out, so I'm pleased with that. I did last week we had to go to Guildford, which is about an hour's drive from us, and it was such a beautiful November morning, and a lot of the drive would be through countryish roads. I thought, if I take my GoPro and then just film, I had thought about doing this video from the car, so I'd just be talking, and instead of looking at me, you would get this beautiful autumn scenery going through the English country lanes. But as it turned out, with Neil driving and me sitting there it wasn't going to allow me to do that. Plus I didn't have a holder for the GoPro, which meant that it was just sat on the dashboard. So whilst you did get a lovely view of the trees, you also got, you know, the windscreen wipers and things like that. So I've now purchased a holder. Sorry, that's twice in a row I lost that word. I've now purchased a holder that, so I can set my GoPro up in the car and we can do some driving videos for you. So you can come for a drive with Neil and I and listen to us inanely talking to each other, if that's what floats your boat. But I thought, well, sometimes, especially for people who can't get out and about. I know a few years ago I was going out and just filming little walks in woodland areas for friends who are disabled and unable to get out and about and do that for themselves. So it's just a case that they could have a little walk in the forest. So I thought I might do a similar sort of thing for people who can't get out, maybe don't have a car or don't have an England to drive through. So I thought I might do just a few of those. And so even if you're just having a cup of tea and watching it and there's no real soundtrack to it, sometimes it's nice just to go for a drive, isn't it? And so that's an idea of something that I'm playing with, and I'm desperately trying to catch up with all the things in the house that I need to do. You know, I didn't list anything at all on eBay for about 3 weeks, so I need to get a lot more of that done. I just seem to be falling behind with everything, so I'm doing my best now to catch up. And the last thing that's happening at the moment that is affecting everything else is the dogs. They're all really well. Don't worry about them. They are really, really healthy. But as we're going out of the summer months into the winter, they are all blowing their summer coat, ready to get all their winter fur in. But that means that I am just fighting this never-ending battle against dog hair. You know, anybody who's had a Labrador will know that a Labrador blowing its coat is not a laughing matter. And so we've got 2 Labradors. Oakley's now 2 inches taller than Echo. He's growing up really beautifully, but we've got these 2 Labradors blowing their coats, which is really bad and requires a lot of work to keep on top of that. But Bear, I've had him for 10 years now, since he flew over from Greece, and every single year about this time of year I groom him and I think, I'm going to have to go to the vet. This cannot be healthy. The amount of fur that is coming out of this dog, he's got to be sick. There's got to be something really wrong. But it's not until I'm thinking it that I think, but I thought that last year and the year before. And he's eating healthily because we've got the puppy. We weigh him every week. He's not losing weight. He's acting perfectly all right. This is normal for him. But every single year it's so bad that I think, I just forget that it was that bad last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. And he just looks like the stuffing's coming out of him. Whereas Labradors kind of shed single hairs, he seems to shed it in tufts. So you find these little tufts of fur. You know, you go down the carpet, it's got all these little white tufts everywhere. And even looking at him, he's got just little bits of tufty bits kind of sticking out. And, you know, Neil actually sits there and pulls them off at times. But it means that, you know, I'm trying, you know, on limited reserves myself to keep on top of keeping the house as clean and under control as I can. But that means an incredible amount of hoovering. Perhaps I was wondering about this. In America, do you call it vacuuming or hoovering? In the UK, we always refer to it as hoovering as opposed to vacuuming. And it doesn't matter whether you've got a Hoover or a Dyson or a Shark, it's still hoovering. But we've only got a small rug in the lounge, but I've got a full-size Hoover, but I still have to, and it is a Hoover, and I still have to empty the dirt compartment twice during the cleaning of that one small rug every single day. You know, they're shedding that much fur. Anyway, poor me, wow. So if you've managed to sit with me this far, thank you very much. I'm hopefully going off to the Remember